Here's the TED Talk. You can't fight fog with facts. What the hell is he talking about? You get up some morning, 5:30, 6 o'clock, you go out, the sun's just coming up. There's fog everywhere. You are waving. You can all see me as well, right? These are presentation tips. I'm not just standing here lecturing. You're waving your hands. The fog is surrounding you. There's moisture every place. That is essentially what we are facing, all of us, every single day, with this fire hose of so-called facts, and they're coming at us from every direction. Now, for the sake of this discussion, I want to talk about disinformation and misinformation. Disinformation, for me, is deliberate. It's distributed for a reason. Trolls, hackers, politicians, spin doctors. This is disinformation, and it is distributed with a purpose. It comes at you all the time from every direction. Abby, Drew, Matt, Andrew, Garima, put your mics on so I can hear you. Misinformation, on the other hand, the way I remember it for myself, it's a mistake. It's misinformation. You are misinformed. You misunderstand, perhaps. All right? But that's the environment that we all live in. Now, you're going to have to make presentations. You are going to have to get people on your side. You're going to have to persuade them. That's what's going to happen at the end of this 60 minutes that I have left. I will teach you as best I can. But if you don't understand what you're fighting against, and this fog is amorphous, you can't touch it, you can't push it. This disinformation is coming at you with intent, and the misinformation is coming at you from people who just didn't get it right. They didn't hear it properly. So the quote of the day is, I was listening to a guy on CNN. So my first impression is, well, it's CNN. It must be somewhat authoritative. I'll take it for what it's worth. And the guy was a senator. Well, he's a senator. You know, he's got a shirt and a tie on and a jacket. He must know what he's talking about. And the quote is, he was asked, what did he think about the insurrection? And he made some outlandish comment. And the interviewer pushed back and said, really? And the senator said, well, that's what he said he thought he saw. Think about that for a minute. That's what that guy said that he thought he saw. But I'll bet you dollars to donuts that 1 million people took that statement, that outlandish statement, as a statement of fact and went around and repeated it. Is that disinformation or misinformation? Speak up, y'all.
So is this from, well, okay.
But
I was gonna say it's disinformation on the senator's part, but it's misinformation on everybody else who's spreading it.
bravo. It's exactly the right answer. It's disinformation and misinformation, probably. Maybe it's disinformation, maybe it's misinformation on both parts. Maybe the senator misunderstand what he said he thought he saw. But that's what we're dealing with. You don't even know if it's right or wrong. And I'm warning you right now, I'm going to throw an Easter egg at you somewhere in this presentation. You better pay attention so you're not embarrassed. So this fog, which I use as a metaphor, is the cloud, which is another metaphor for information that's out there on the internet. It's coming from every channel, coming from every direction. They are watching what you do on your computer. and they're looking at your emails and your phone is talking to his phone, which is talking to her phone, which is talking to that guy, and so on and so on. And so it's a fog of information. I'm not even going to call them facts necessarily, but the fog is out there and you really can't push back against it. You're not even sure which is the misinformation and which is the disinformation. What do you? So that's the cloud. That's the fog. Now, let's go back in time. There were channels, three major news outlets: ABC, NBC, and CBS. And in order to get an FCC license, you had to report the news. Report the news, not opine, not an interview. What I think, you had to report the news, and there were editors. Editors are not censors; they're editors, which means that they're fact checking before anything goes out on the air. And there were these three major news outlets. So you could pretty reliably imagine that what you heard on the news was a fact. Here's the problem with facts: we have what's known as confirmation bias. This is why it's so hard to persuade people, because even if you have an actual verifiable fact, your audience will assemble, reassemble, filter those facts with confirmation bias, which means we accept what we like because we're comfortable with it, because it fits our view of the world. And we reject the facts that we don't like. Call it cherry picking, call it confirmation bias, call it building a case, which is what lawyers do. And you, as presenters, are going to have to build a case. But you have to understand also that your audience is filtering everything through their own confirmation bias. But they're still facts, right? Okay, now you have facts, and yet another layer is this interpretation. Okay, I can reassemble the facts, confirmation bias, and put my own take on things. You know, if you're a sports fan, everybody hates the referees, of course, or the umpires, as the case may be. You know that this umpire is sitting over the inside of the plate, and so you're likely to get the inside strike called, but not the outside strike. That's interpretation or point of view. If I'm standing in the right spot, maybe I'll get the right point of view on the facts. But if I'm standing in just the wrong spot, I might not see that trailing foot and the tag going on the trailing foot. These are all the things that you've got to understand. I can teach you the mechanics of making a presentation. But if you don't understand all the biases and all the problems of misinformation and disinformation and confirmation bias that you're fighting against, well, you could build the best case in the world, and the other guy just says, yeah, I don't think so. That's what you're up against. All right. Let's go back in time again then. How do we persuade people? Here's Aristotle's three modes of presentation: ethos, pathos, and logos. Let's start from the bottom, work up. What's logos?
Yeah, maybe it's the way that you present your argument, so like the evidence and like something along those lines.
Yeah, let's say it's the evidence. Let's say it's the facts, it's the data. That's the logos, or the logic of the thing. Let's do pathos. It's pretty obvious.
Appealing to your audience's sense of emotion.
Exactly. Tugging at the heartstrings. That's what pathos is all about. And ethos, I'll just do that one because it's the toughest of the three. It's credibility, according to this model of Aristotle, but I want to expand that a little bit and call it ethics, call it the social contract, call it the the world that we live in. We have to fit ethos. We have to fit all of this logic and emotion into the world that we live in. All right. Now, let's jump ahead a few thousand years. I'm going to translate that and call it the head, the heart, and I'm going to change ethos to the guts, because the social contract and the ethos, I'm going to start saying, is having to do with survival or fear, right? We have to live that way. But here's the paradox. If you present to the head first, try to persuade somebody with facts, well, I just told you, there's a million facts and everybody does it their own way. So you're screwed. You will not win a discussion, an argument, a case, just appealing to the head, trying to lay out the facts. I'm not interested. It's over. You need to appeal to somebody's heart, to their passion. This is where the storytelling starts to come in. You got to appeal to their heartstrings. They love something or they hate something. That's the most extreme. Or they adore puppies. How many commercials are done with puppies, for heaven's sakes? Because people love puppies and it makes you feel warm. Or something that's really unappealing, an ogre of some sort. All right. And the last thing is guts. It's survival, it's fear, it's fight or flight, it's fear of missing out. These are things that get people moving, that get people to take action. And if you don't blend all three in your presentation, you will not get the reaction that you're looking for. So I saw a great comic from the Oatmeal. And if you're not familiar with the Oatmeal, it's a really terrific strip. But you have to appeal to the guts first and let the emotions fight and the fear. And then once that dies down, people will listen to you. Then you can come in with your facts and your data and your incontrovertible conclusion. And even then, people aren't going to say, oh, yeah, you're right, let's do it your way. Because nobody likes to lose an argument. But they will go back and think about it. The customer will always go back and say, let me think it over. Then 2 weeks they come back, 2 weeks later they come back to you like it was their idea. And they say, you know, we could do it this way, and that way. Because they've had a chance to digest it and assimilate it, put it into their own bias, and own it. Now you are persuading people. So you can't really win an argument. You can't fight fog with facts. But if you understand this underpinning, you certainly can change some minds.